Thanks for joining me here at Math Rocks with Mr. Cox. In this video, we're going to be looking at two different distinct ways of measuring the size of an angle. You're all familiar with DEG or degrees, but there's a second way called radians, or we abbreviate with rad. So in this video, you'll discover how these two are related. And then besides that, you're going to also discover how to actually convert from degrees into radians. So for instance, 120 degrees becomes 2 pi over 3 radians, or even the reverse, where you have 5 pi over 4 radians, and we're going to convert that into 225 degrees. So stick around and see how all this works out. Let's get it on! So the first thing we should talk about is exactly, well, what is a radian and how does it relate to degrees? So I have a picture here of a circle, and clearly you can see this is the radius out from the center out to this over here. And it turns out a radian is nothing more than that if I were to go from 0 degrees and I was going to go create an arc right here, that arc has the length exactly the same as the radius. And what that means is this angle right down there is going to be equivalent to what we call 1 radian. And by the way, that is approximately 57.3 degrees. And you might not be asking yourself right now, well, how does he know that it's 57.3 degrees approximately? And here's why. If we were to keep going and go ahead and go make another arc that is about 1 radius long and keep doing this all the way around the circle, what happens is we actually create the circumference. So if we take the circumference of a circle, we know that the formula is 2 times pi times the radius. And in a unit circle, we know that the radius is equal to 1. So that means our circumference is equal to 2 pi times 1, otherwise known as 2 pi. So all the way around this circle would be 2 pi radians. We also know that in a circle it's 360 degrees. Therefore, 360 degrees, if we're talking about degrees, must equal 2 pi radians. And if we go ahead and divide both sides by 2 to simplify it a little bit here, we come up with a very important formula for how to convert from degrees into radians, and that is 180 degrees equals pi radians. And by the way, if you took 180 and divided by pi, you would actually get the 57.3 approximately degrees that I was talking about. So that's why 1 radian is worth about 57.3 degrees. So now that we know that 180 degrees actually equals pi radians, it makes the conversion from degrees into radians actually pretty simple. So I'm going to put a couple examples up here. So I have 30 degrees, and so what we're going to do is we're going to take that 30 degrees and we're going to go ahead and multiply by pi over 180 degrees. And the reason we can do that is because pi and 180 degrees are equivalent to each other. Anything divided by itself is 1, so therefore we can go ahead and multiply 30 degrees by that. It's going to change, how the answer looks, but it's not going to change essentially what it's worth. So I'm going to go ahead and cross off the degrees first. So I'm going to cross off degrees. So we're going to wind up with 30 pi over 180, and now it's just a matter of reducing 30 over 180. Well, I can divide them both by 10, so now I get 3 over 18, and that, if I divide them each by 3, I'm going to get 1 over 6, or just pi over 6. So 30 degrees would be equivalent to pi over 6 radians, and that would be the exact answer. I know you could take your calculator and take pi divided by 6 and get some sort of decimal answer, but we want to keep it as the exact value. All right, let's move on to 225 degrees. Same trick. We're going to take 225 degrees. We're going to go ahead and multiply it by pi over 180 degrees. And then what we can do is we have to think, well, what would divide into both of these? And it turns out the biggest number that would divide into both is actually 45. 45 would actually go into here 5 times, and 45 would go into here 4 times. So this ends up being 5 pi over 4. So that's what it would be when it's fully reduced as an exact value. Let's go into 300 degrees over here. So we would take 300 degrees. Once again, we're going to multiply by pi over 180 degrees. And now what we're going to do is we're going to reduce. I'm going to divide them both by 10. So now I have 30 over 18. Well, 30 and 18, what goes into both would be 6. So if I divide 30 by 6, I'm going to get 5. So I'm going to get 5 pi. And 18 divided by 6 would be 3. So 300 degrees ends up being 5 pi over 3. As always, if you like what you see, please like, comment, or subscribe. Thank you. And now back to part 2. So I've gone ahead now and I've done it for every single degree on our unit circle here. So for instance, 135 degrees is 3 pi over 4. Or 270 degrees ends up being 3 pi over 2. So if you have some sort of a unit circle chart where you're keeping track of all the degrees and so forth, you can go ahead now and know all the different conversions from degrees into radians. And now, what if we want to reverse this, where we have radians to begin with, and now we actually want to convert into degrees? It's actually going to be the reverse process in terms of the fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and write pi over 3 here. And rather than multiplying by what we had before, we're going to need a pi on the bottom because we're going to need them to cancel out. So this time we're going to multiply by 180 degrees over pi instead of the reverse. Now the pi's will cancel out. And you have 180 divided by 3, and that is just 60 degrees. So pi over 3 is equivalent to 60 degrees. On the next one, 5 pi over 6. Once again, I'm going to put my pi on the bottom, and I'm going to put my 180 on top. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cancel out the pi's. 6 and 180, if I went ahead and divided this by 6, I would get 1. If I divide that by 6, I get 30. 5 times 30 is 150, so 5 pi over 6 is equivalent to 150 degrees. And then let's do one more here, 7 pi over 4. So I'm going to go ahead once again and multiply by 180 degrees over pi. My pi's cancel out. If I divide this by 4, I'm going to get 1. If I divide this by 4, I actually get 45. And if you need to, grab your calculator. 7 times 45 is 315 degrees. So I hope you've learned a lot in this video. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon.